Today we will discuss a new topic, Monopoly Restrictive Trade Practice Act. Monopolistic and Restrictive Trade Practice Act under MRTP Act 1969. What it says? The Monopolistic and Restrictive Trade Practices Act 1969 was enacted to ensure that the operation of the economic system does not result in the concentration of economic power in hands of few. To provide for the control of monopolies and to prohibit monopolistic and restrictive trade practices, the MRTP Act extends to the whole India except Jammu and Kashmir. Unless the central government otherwise directs, this act shall not apply to any undertaking owned or controlled by the government company, any undertaking owned or controlled by the government, any undertaking owned or controlled by a corporation not being a company established by or under any central, provincial or state act, any trade union or other association of workmen or employees formed for their own reasonable production as such workmen or employees. Any undertaking engaged in an industry, the management of which has been taken over by any person or body or persons under powers by central government. Any undertaking owned by a cooperative society formed and registered under any central, provincial or state act, any financial institutions. Now we will discuss Competition Act 2002. The Monopolies Inquiry Commission was established in April 1964 under Justice K.C. Das Gupta, a Supreme Court judge. The objective of the commission was to inquire about the effect and extent of monopolistic and restrictive trade practices in important sectors of the Indian economy. The Monopolies and Restrictive Practices Act of 1969 was enacted to limit the concentration of wealth in a few hands and limit monopolistic practices, but it was too archaic in its definitions of what is a monopolistic practice. This, it was decided that a view, or you can say new law governing competition in India was required. So in addition, what we can say that 1969 MRTP Act, the 2002 Competition Act superseded this 1969 Act, and some new amendments were taken into so that the definition of monopolistic practice can be defined. Keeping the above purpose in mind, the Competition Act was introduced in Lok Sabha on 6 August 2001. On August 5, 2022, the Competition Amendment Bill 2022 to amend the Competition Act 2002, the Competition Act was introduced in Indian Parliament. The timing of approval of the bill was its coming into effect is uncertain at present. Now we will discuss what were the key changes proposed by this Company Act 2022. Introduction of deal value thresholds pursuant to which large value transactions will require the approval of the Competition Commission of India. Relaxation for implementation of open offers and stock exchange purchase. Shortened timelines for review of combinations. Amendment of the definition of control to include material influence. Introduction of settlement and commitment to resolve investigations in respect of anti-competitive vertical agreements and abuse of dominance. And now we will discuss the key difference between MRTP Act and Competition Act. What are the key differences we will discuss? Number 1. MRTP Act is a competition law that was created in India in 1970 to prevent concentration of economic powers in few hands. On the other hand, Competition Act emerged as an improvement over MRTP Act to shift the focus from controlling monopoly to initiating competition in the economy. MRTP Act is reformatory in nature, whereas Competition Act is punitive. In Monopolies and Restrictive Trade Practices Act, the dominance of a firm is determined by its size. On the other hand, the dominance of a firm in the market is determined by its structure in the Ease of Competition Act. MRTP Act focuses on the interest of consumers. Conversely, Competition Act focuses on the interest of the public at large. So these are the key differences between the MRTP Act and Competition Act. In addition, in MRTP Act, there are 14 offences which are against the rules of natural justice. On the contrary, there are only 4 offences listed by the Competition Act that violates the principles of natural justice. The MRTP Act does not specify any penalty for offence, but Competition Act states a penalty for the offence. The basic motto of the MRTP Act is to control monopolies. As against this, the Competition Act intends to initiate and sustain competition. Monopolies and Restrictive Trade Practices Act requires that the agreement to registered. In contrast, the Competition Act is silent on the registration of agreements. In MRTP Act, the appointment of a chairperson was done by the central government, but on the contrary, in the Competition Act, the appointment of chairperson was done by a committee that comprises retired persons. So these are the major differences between MRTP Act and the Competition Act. But the act which was presented in the Lok Sabha Company Act 2022, still it's what will be in the preview of it. So we will have to wait and watch for it. Contact me if you have any question and queries. Please like and subscribe my channel. Thank you. Prof Santosh Nandal.